हाय, ज्ञान दर्शन के सभी श्रोताओं को नमस्कार. I am Nitin Somani, and today we will be discussing on certain points related to transfer of shares in physical mode in case of listed companies. Now, when we talk about sale of shares, so generally the shares can be sold in demat and physical form both. However, for listed companies, there are certain restrictions. The restrictions are because primarily the Companies Act and SEBI, which is the governing authority, these both regulators does not permit transfer of physical shares. The reasons are various, and the primary concern is to safeguard the interests of the investors so that the shares can be transferred in demat form with ease and convenience and in a faster manner. There are two kind of companies. One is a private limited and second is a limited company. Now SEBI has restricted all transfer of physical shares into public limited listed companies. Similarly, Companies Act also does not allow transfer of physical shares in case of public limited company. Now there are certain exceptions to it, and the exception which has been brought in by SEBI is only for listed companies. Under listed companies, the shares in physical mode can be transferred under three methods. One, when the company is coming out with a buyback. Second, open offer, and third is the delisting process. A specific regulation and the circulars have been issued by SEBI in this regard, and based on these circulars, the shareholder had the option to transfer physical shares. He need not go into getting these shares dematted and then transfer of these shares. Sorry. Now, when we talk about transfer of shares in demat form, why demat? It is demat. A demat form takes a faster process in terms of transfer of shares. The shares can be transferred electronically. This is similar to your bank account. Your funds are parked in a bank account, you issue a check and the amount gets transferred. The same way in a demat account, you have a delivery instruction slip. You sign the delivery instruction slip, give it to your depository participant, and the shares get transferred. So it becomes a hassle-free process. The shareholder need not have to sign various forms, share transfer deed, affix physical share transfer stamp, and take the entire process and pains of getting the share transferred in 10 to 15 day time period. Generally, when we talk about transfer of physical shares, you have to sign all the document, give to the registrar, which takes around 15 days, and then the shares will get transferred. Secondly, the larger risk is the risk of forgery or risk of misplacement of share certificates. It's possible that in case of physical shares, someone has signed the share transfer deed and forged your signatures and got the share transferred. Another possibility is that when you are sending these shares for transfer to the registrar, it might be possible that in the course of the dispatch of the share certificate to the registrar, it may get lost in transit because of no because of no error at your end. However, you will have to pay cost for that. Now going forward, there is a reduced cost in terms of demat. You don't have to make any payment for postage, courier, and all those kind of stuff. It saves your costs. Then, in case of physical shares, earlier there were odd lots. You had to transfer shares in 100 for in a lot of 100 only. If you are holding shares in say 5 shares, 10 shares, or 15 shares, it was difficult to transact on the stock market because these are called as odd lot. However, in demat, the ease is you can even transfer one single share. And lastly, you get all consolidation of your holdings in just one account. You don't have to maintain multiple share certificate, physical share certificate, ensure that all these share certificates are properly saved at your end, not misplaced. In demat, you just get a demat holding statement similar to your bank statement, and that is sufficient. Now we discussed about three opportunities where in a listed company the shareholder can transfer the shares. These are takeover or open offer, as we say. The second is a buyback of shares, and third is delisting of shares. Under takeover, it is a process where an acquirer gives an open offer to the public shareholder to purchase their shares. This is again a regulatory process wherein someone is taking control over the company or increasing their or consolidating their shareholding, and as a mandatory requirement, they have to give an open offer. Second process is buyback of shares. Under buyback of shares, the company itself purchases the shares and extinguishes the shares. That means basically a treat to reduction of capital of the company. And third is delisting of shares. Delisting is again a process similar to open offer where someone is giving an offer to acquire the shares. However, under this process, when the delisting is successful, the company will get delisted. That means there will be no formal market available for sale or purchase of shares. Under all these three processes, the public shareholder can come forward, participate in the offer, and tender their shares. Now, while tendering the shares, there will be a specified form which had to be signed either for demat or for physical purpose. Then secondly, for physical share, you need to attach various other documents also to get the process completed. So SEBI has allowed submission or tender of shares under all these three processes in physical form also. Now, how do you participate? This is the basic question. I have told you can tender your shares, but how? This process gives you the entire detail that what all documents need to be submitted and whether you want to submit these shares in demat form or physical form. Both processes can be managed. Now, the first process is you go to a depository participant, convert your shares into demat and then tender your shares. The second process is you have a physical share certificate. You go ahead and tender that physical share certificate as it is under the offer process. You can resort to any of these two methods. There is no compulsion that you have to go with any specific one method only. Now, coming to both the methods, we have tried to elaborate it in detail, wherein first is that when you participate in the offer in demat form. So, under this process, you have to go to a depository participant. You have to get your demat account opened. For opening a demat account, you have to provide your KYC document, PAN, Aadhaar, address proof. A demat account will get opened. Generally, it takes a time period of around 7 to 10 working days, depending on the intermediary. Then they will give you a demat account number. After that, you have to give your share certificate to the registrar for getting it converted into demat. Once it is converted into demat, the share will come into your demat account and then you can participate in the offer in demat form. So first is you open a demat account. Second is you request for the dematerialization of share. The depository has a form which is called a demat requisition form. Under demat requisition form, you fill up the form, you attach the original share certificate and give it to depository. Depository will forward it to the registrar to the company and then registrar to the company will tender the shares. Now, this is a process where you get your share demat. Now, the remaining three portions are how you participate in the offer. So, first of all, you have to open a trading account with any of the stockbroker. Again, opening of a trading account is an account which will enable you to tender shares on the stock exchange. When you open a trading account, again you have to give your KYC, PAN, Aadhaar, address proof and similar kind of documentation to your stockbroker. The stockbroker will undertake your registration process, will generate a UCC, which is generally called, which is known as unique client code. Once the unique client code is generated, then you can go ahead and participate in the offer. Now, when the UCC is generated, then you have to fill up the form of acknowledgement, which is available in all three processes. That form of acknowledgement has to be signed, handed over to your stockbroker, and then your stockbroker will submit bid on your behalf. Once the bid is submitted and the offer closes, thereafter the process of settlement will take place. Settlement means you have tendered 100 shares, but again this 100 shares, it might be possible only 50, 70, 80 or 90 shares will get accepted. So for this entire process, the merchant banker, the registrar will work along with the company. They will basically work on the entitlement ratio, how many shares are getting accepted. Based on this acceptance, they will give the final file to the stock exchange and then the stock exchange will do the settlement. When you do the settlement, the shares will automatically move out from your demat account and the money will come to your bank account. So this is how you can participate in case of demat form. However, after converting the physical shares. Now we talk about the other situation. You have shares of just one company or two companies, you do not have multiple companies in your portfolio. So in this case, it is not mandatory that you open a demat account because it requires some time, efforts, energies and also costs is involved. So how do you participate? In this case, you directly go to a stockbroker. With the stockbroker, you open a trading account. Again, the process will remain same. You have to give your KYC documents and get your account opened. A unique client code will be generated for you. After that, the bid submission has to be done. Again, the same process wherein you give the tender form to the broker. The broker on your behalf will put the bid into the stock exchange system. A transaction recognition slip number will be generated, TRS number. This will be given to you at confirmation of submission of your bid. Once this has happened, after that there is a slight deviation from the demat process. After submission of your bid, the TRS copy will be received by you. So you have to take couple of documents which will be your TRS copy, the form of acceptance, original share certificate, your share transfer form, and few other documents. These all documents you have to courier or you have to send by post to the registrar to the offer. The receipt of the document by the registrar of offer will ensure that you are eligible to participate in the offer and your shares are accepted. If these documents are not received in time, then you are running the risk of getting your shares rejected under the offer. The limiting factor is that these shares should reach the registrar's office within 2 working days from the date of closure of the offer. This is a limiting factor, so you have to ensure that these shares get deposited, lodged over there. And lastly, the settlement process. This again is the same process as is there in the demat form. Now, what all documents you have to enclose? In terms of documents, there are multiple documents when you are tendering it in physical form. Once the bid is submitted, you will get TRS. Thereafter, you have to take your original share certificate. Please ensure that original share certificates are good for transfer. If there has been a change of name, then that change of name has been carried out on the face of the certificate. There should be the endorsement of the name of the shareholder either on the front or on the back side of the share certificate. That is equally important. That proves the ownership of the shareholder. After that, you have to take a share transfer form, which is also called a share transfer deed. In the share transfer deed, you have to fill up the particulars of yours as a seller. You have to sign it. However, certain times when in practical side it happens that your share transfer form signature and the signature which is there in the record of the company, there is a mismatch in both the document signatures. Why this mismatch happens? It might be possible you would have purchased this share 10-20 years before and you are not able to recall your exact signatures, or over a period of time certain times your signatures also change. So if there is a mismatch in signature, these shares will be rejected by the company or the registrar. So you have to ensure that these signatures on the share transfer deed are accepted. For doing this, as an additional abundant caution, you can get your share transfer deed signed or attested by your bank manager. What will happen? You take this share transfer deed, sign it across, you present it to your branch manager where you are having the bank account. The manager will attach the signature with your saving or current account which the bank is having and will certify that these signatures belong to you. Along with these signatures, when you are submitting the copy of your PAN and other address ID proof, so it becomes a composite set of documents which will be valid for acceptance. Then there can be possibility that you are tendering these shares through power of attorney. You have to give the copy of power of attorney also. Then you have to give a certified self-attested copy of your PAN card, your Aadhaar card or any other address proof. This will ensure that there is no chance of rejection of your documents. We totally agree that these documents would have been submitted by you at the time of opening of your trading account also, but submission of these documents along with tender form will strengthen your case for acceptance purpose. Then the tender form has to be duly signed. The tender form, when you sign it across, you have to fill up all the details of your share certificate. In these terms, you have to fill up details of your share certificate number, share distinctive numbers, your folio numbers. If there are multiple share certificates, where for example you are holding 10 or 20 different share certificates and the page does not contain all the details, you attach a separate supplement to this and provide this tender form. Along with that, there can be a case where these shares are held by a company, not an individual. Now, for every company to function, there has to be an authority which has been granted. So, for company, there is a requirement of corporate authorization, which ideally comes from a board resolution. So, the board resolution should contain the name of the person who is signing the document, signing the share transfer deed and the tender form. Along with that, the person who is signing these forms, he had to submit his copy of PAN card also for identification purpose, which carries the specimen signature, or else